Today, my guest is the author of The Brand Named You. She is going to show you how to achieve your goals through strategic personal branding. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of books written about personal branding. And if you are an entrepreneur, if you are in business, if you are an author, if you are a, basically an individual who is doing any type of business at all, you understand branding and the importance of it. However, what's different about Olesija Sauer's book is it is the first one to actually offer a very clear, thorough, and hands-on tools and a step-by-step process for creating your personal brand and how to develop it.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Olesija Saue is a personal branding strategist and executive coach. She is also a social media strategist and partner at Goal Social Media Marketing, a serial entrepreneur with 20 plus years of experience in sales and marketing. As a former CEO of Forbes Estonia, she helped to bring the world's most trusted business media brand to the business audience in Baltics. Welcome, Olesija.
Carol, it's my pleasure to be here, and hello to everyone who is listening to us today.
When I asked you what made you successful, I really appreciated your answer. You said positivity and grit. So please start by telling us a bit about your background, how you rose above the problems you've had to overcome personally, including the loss of your business during the last crisis.
Well, if I would start from the very beginning, then I would say that my earlier career was like American roller coaster. By the age of 20, I made a dream career at the steel galvanizing plant here in Estonia, raising in a couple of months from the position of human resources manager to the general manager of the plant, responsible for all of the sales, shipping, and then purchasing, which and I was 22 at that time, which in a couple of years followed by establishment of my own steel trading company, and for a couple of years it's been a very exciting journey. I've been young and ambitious, and I didn't take a no for an answer. And I went to China and India and brought steel to plants and factories in Scandinavia and Baltics, and then Eastern and Western Europe, and everything was going extraordinarily well. And pretty much by the age of 25, I had anything and everything that I could possibly dream of.
Yes.
And then came the crisis of 2008. 2009, and if some of our listeners remember, then it was a time of economic crisis. At that time, also the prices of steel dropped 50% overnight. We had a warehouse full of steel our customers defaulted payments, banks diverted the credit lines, the insurance companies decided not to pay the insurance policies. So pretty much in a matter of months, I was left with nothing.
Wow.
And I see quite often that we are afraid to start, and we are afraid to
Hmm.
go and chase our dreams. But during my lifetime, I actually, by my own experience, realized that it's much more difficult to restart and reset
Yes.
yourself
Yes.
once you've hit the bottom ground, and you really have to rediscover yourself, because in our society, I think we identify ourselves so much with external success,
Yes.
with external achievements, and once you don't have them, we are faced with a question, and who am I? And
Hmm. Hmm.
and this was pretty much a beginning of my journey, which later on led me to the personal branding and also coaching fields that I now think pretty much think that all of this was a very interesting blessing in disguise, because I was forced to rediscover who am I really understood that no matter what the situation and no matter what happens to us, actually at any point in life, we have something that nobody can take from us. And this is our personal brand DNA. That's the way that I call it now. Our strengths, our unique values, our story, and actually owning our story with both extreme successes as well as lessons. Because, we as people want to be liked, and we
Right.
want to share stories of our hero journey, but we kind of think that we are entitled to share our story only once we get to the top of our achievement mountain. Like once I become a new Oprah or a new Elon Musk, then I will have the right to share my story. And I also had the same feeling inside of me that who am I to share my story? Am I to inspire anybody? But what I realized is that people don't want to hear, the right story of enormous success. People just want to hear the real story of people to whom they can connect to and relate to, and people who perhaps are just 2 or 3 steps ahead of them, and have overcome the challenges that are just standing in front of me, of us at the same time.
I think that that is why this particular show, Never Ever Give Up Hope, has been so successful. This is now, I'm going into, well, it's the end of my eighth year. And that is what the platform is. I want to know what made you you. I want to know about the failures. And then we talk about the successes, because this is what people are going to relate to. Just like you said, it's very hard to relate to someone like Oprah without realizing who she was before she became, the big O, or any other number of people out there who we look up to and admire, whether it's in business or in anything else. But as you're saying, and I cannot agree with you more, that we want to know the backstory, and this is what you are sharing here, and I sincerely appreciate it. Now, one thing that you said was, and I would like you to walk us through this, please, is how do you help people facilitate the self-discovery process of who am I?
My own personal journey got me into executive coaching, but what I understood from my own experience is that we all have answers to the questions that we are asking from the outside world. We live in a world where we are, especially women, but also men, we have so many roles and so many expectations. So we forget to really just sit down for a second and write out or think about it, even for 5 or 10 minutes. Who am I and what do I really want? Like, what are my real strengths? What I'm good at? What do I enjoy doing? What are my passions? What are the things that when I do them, I come to life? And once you really think about those
Mm,
things, then you really wake up to life, and everything from there, if you put it into marketing and becomes authentic and becomes easier. But we just need to really look into ourselves, take all of those shallow expectations and roles and then things that especially in personal branding, and we're coming into the topic of the personal branding. People are trying to copy somebody's success. So people are talking, oh, how can I become next Oprah? Oh, how can I become next Richard Branson? But the only one of the things that is common to those people, they don't try to be somebody else. Like Oprah
right.
is Oprah. She's owning who she is. Some people adore her and some people don't. And this is okay with her. And this all comes down to the authenticity. And this question of authenticity really puzzled me for quite some time because um, so I shared your story of my business collapsing. After that, I started to consult some of my former customers and some of the customers at my husband's company on how to use social media, how to export and things like that. And I started really to think how you can take all that you have and maximize this. And they understood that quite often we don't look at the things that we have that makes us unique. We're
Right.
trying to look at somebody else's success and we're trying to copy that. But we as humans, each and every one of us, we have some unique strengths. We have our unique story. We have our values and our style. And this is our unique competitive advantage. And this is impossible to copy. And if we own it, if we really truly own our story, all of our adventures, I would call them, all of our strengths, perhaps our peculiarities, we would create this authentic connection with people on the other side so that people would come to us because of us. Because if we come back to the question how the brands were created, brands were created based on the Jung's brand archetype. And the main reason for the brand archetypes to exist is to resemble certain types of people, so that people who have similarities would relate to them. But we as people don't have to resemble anything. We already possess all of those qualities. We just have to understand who we are, really understand and own it. And once we do that, it becomes very authentic and it becomes easy for us.
Don't you think too that there's different ways to look at success and how we measure success? And that sometimes like the world standard might be one thing. Isn't
Yes.
it all relative? Like you can't look at someone else's success, who has been huge and maybe expect to ever, realize that kind of success. However, you are successful in your own area, whatever that may be, and it might not necessarily be a monetary one. What's your thought on that?
Yes, I think that success is very personal. If you would ask me 20 years ago, I would define success as something totally outside of me. But now I believe that success is when you live your life and fully utilize all of your strengths, and you live in your passion zone, and you live every day with purpose and aliveness. And this is totally different to different people. But I have seen so many people, and then still some of those people are my customers, and they put so much effort into, for example, career and job, totally forgetting about their health, about their family, about themselves, and sooner or later it comes back to them. So I
Right.
think that success is really uh, uh, really upgrading all of different parts of your life, so that I would not say that we have to strive to a work-life balance, because I don't believe in this, that we can have like a real balance between work and life. But I believe that we can have a harmonious life where we have meaningful connections both at home and at work.
Right.
We can
Right.
have physical and mental health, so we have energy to actually live and pursue our dreams. And also, the job or the business that we're pursuing is meaningful. It's something that gives meaning to us, and perhaps creates a bigger impact in the world around us. And depending on our ambitions, this impact can be smaller, just impact on our family, or it can be a bigger impact, an impact on the whole world around us.
Exactly. Thank you so much for making that very clear. Now, we are going to talk about branding, and this is where it's going to get exciting. But first, we're going to take a very short break, and we will be right back.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another: gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
We're back with Olesija Saue, and I have been taking notes 100 miles an hour on what she is sharing because it is so important that many of the things that she said, including and the self discovery process. And I really appreciate what you said about that. Now we're going to talk about, first of all, what are some of the misconceptions about branding? Because branding is a huge subject, and you are going to walk us through that. But let's start with the misconceptions. Could you share that, please?
I think that one of the most popular misconceptions about branding, and particularly personal branding, it's kind of like, a vanity fair. So people and brands who don't have enough options have to put a lot of effort into packaging and presenting themselves, and then crafting a message. And during the last couple of years, because of the rise of the social media influencers, a lot of people, especially people, coming from traditional businesses, who have been in business or in their industry for, let's say, like 10 or 20 years, and have like loads of experience. they lack the knowledge of social media or lack understanding of digital space. They feel that there are a lot of so-called experts who have no idea about the subject, but still they get a lot of traction and they get a lot of audience, and they are popular, and they are not. And this was actually
Okay.
one of the reasons why I wrote a book on personal branding, because I see that, as luxury brands, in case of luxury brands, you have two things that have to be perfect. You have to have a very good product, and you also have to have a very good packaging and a very good brand, so that people would pay premium. And I think that in case of us as humans, it's the same thing, because we make our first impression very quickly. When we meet physically, we make our first impression in 30 seconds. And then it is very hard to change that. So whether I meet you in person and I think that you're a very likable person, you would have to do a lot of bad things for me to change that, and then and vice versa. On social media and in digital space, this attention span actually is even shorter. So we can say that people are just scanning information, they're Googling information about us,
Right,
and
right.
just 3 seconds is the first impression that people get. And
Wow.
what people quite often think, and this is one of very common misconceptions once again, is that people kind of think that I either don't have a personal brand at all, or I have to be, a household name, so that everybody
Right,
in
right.
the country, in the world, would recognize me. But in the reality, we all have personal brands, whether we know about it or not, whether we like it or not. We can say that personal brand is what, and Jeff Bezos actually in 2012 gave a very good definition of personal branding. So personal brand is what people say about you once you have left the room. So this is kind of a perception. Starting from your early ages, all of the people that came across you got a certain perception of you. And I think that this definition of personal branding was very valid and still valid to some point today as well. But now, because we have also a digital space, we don't have just our physical personal brand. We sort of ended up with having also a digital twin of ours. So we have like our physical brand and we have our digital brand. And quite often, our digital personal brand doesn't fully resemble who we are in physical life. And today, I would say that personal brand is not only what people say after you have left the room, but quite often, personal brand is what people know about you before you enter the room. Just the way that we
Okay.
met. So based on the information that is out there in the digital space, people make their perception. Remember, 3 seconds, people Google. The first page of the Google search gives a lot of information. And if you are not strategically managing your personal brand, it is just being created occasionally by somebody else. So it's not really a question of whether or not you have a personal brand or not, you do, but
Right.
whether it is working for you or without you even realizing that. Perhaps it's working against. And can you imagine in a world with when digital possibilities and digital platforms are available to everyone, your competitors are doing a better job.
That's
They are
right.
more digital savvy. They are more present. Yes, perhaps they are not so knowledgeable. Yes, perhaps they are not such a good expert. But so what? If you are not present where your customers are, you become quite extinct in just a couple of months. And I think that This last years of pandemic very well demonstrated
Yes. Yes.
all of the discussions and thought leadership is actually happening online. It's just a matter of a choice whether you want to take part of that or left behind.
What are the steps then of building a strong personal brand?
I would also perhaps try to point out that quite often when people are looking at personal branding, they start from this outside version of themselves. So they try to think about what channels I have to use and what message
Mm-hmm.
I have to portray, and then what should be my content strategy and sales funnel and etc. But I would really suggest that we first get back to the basics and really look at our personal brand DNA. Because as I've mentioned already in the beginning of our conversation, this is the only thing that nobody else can copy. Your strengths and how your strengths can help your customers, your values and how your values can help your customers, your unique style of communication, the way you make people feel, is also something that nobody can copy. And once you understand that, and also quite important is really to understand the reason why you're doing that. Because personal branding and all sorts of branding and marketing, it's a long time process. It's not a sprint; it's marathon.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
you have to have a very clear why you're doing that, because there will be times when you don't feel like posting, and you don't see any results, and the only thing that would be driving you is a very clear understanding that you have something special to give to your customers, and you are the only person who can give this to them. And if don't show up, then quite many people would be missing out on the message that you have to share, the knowledge that you have to share. So I've working with different people, both individuals and company owners, and also companies. I've really realized that once people uh, really get down to this understanding of who am I and why I'm doing things that I'm doing, they and what is the greater impact that they can have in this world with my company, with my message. They get this inner strength, which gets them going. But from marketing perspective, it also gives their brand authenticity. And authenticity is something that we cannot fake. We as people have this, authenticity detector. We can easily spot when person is authentic in what he or she is saying, or if he's just trying to pretend. And authenticity only comes
Yes.
from
Yes.
understanding, and not only understanding, but owning who you are. Because as we've discussed before, people don't like perfect people because we can't relate to them. People like to hear these stories from real people who are as
Yes.
human as they are.
So, how is your book different from other books out there? And tell us who needs to buy this book and why.
The reason why this book is different is also related to my personal story, because when I told you that at some point I was really struggling with answers to the questions of who am
Right.
I got into the field of executive coaching, which helped me to learn to ask questions. And at the same time, I also had a very big experience in sales and marketing. But at the same time, I felt that nothing of my knowledge was working, because my message was not reaching the right people. And I was thinking that how is it possible? Because I know how to package myself properly, but something was missing, and this something was this the same thing that I'm telling you about, this authenticity, this really understanding and owning my story and who am I. So I looked at literally hundreds of books
Wow.
on personal branding out there. And my bookworm. So once I get excited about one topic, I really dig into it and then try to get all of the books available on that subject. So there were lots of books out there which were telling you what you have to do. So if, in a nutshell, we would ask like every single brand strategist out there, what are the two components of successful personal branding? They would tell you authenticity and consistency. I would now confirm that this is also, yes, that's right. You have to be authentic and you have to be consistent. But my question was, but how do you become authentic? And how can you be consistent? The whole idea behind that book was to put a very clear framework and very clear roadmap from where you are today to where you want to get tomorrow. Because I see that personal branding can be like a bridge
Mm.
between where you are today, the way that you are, and your better version of yourself, not in a very far future, but perhaps like a year or 2 or 5 apart. So yeah, this is a very clear framework. There are 100 steps in this book, and we look into two things. We look into the substance. So we decode the personal brand DNA, and then we also look into the marketing part. And I think that it would be valuable to our listeners if I share 7 questions out of this book,
Okay.
which pretty much help us to put a very clear personal branding strategy. So book really goes very much into detail with each and every one of
Okay.
those questions, but I think this could be a very good start. So we have first to start with the question of what is my goal of personal brand, what I want to achieve, whether it's a bigger exposure, whether I want to be an authority leader in certain industry, whether I want to get new customers or new partners or new investors or new employees. So once you are very clear where you're going, you can decide what are the best steps for you to take so that you can get there in the most efficient way. Then another question, second question, is this personal brand DNA. So who am I? Really understanding your unique strengths, your passion, what you are good in, what are topics that interest you, what are the things that you enjoy doing, what are your values, like your true values, what is your style, your communication style, your visual style, the way that you dress, what is your unique value proposition based on your personal brand DNA. So if I choose to work with you, what would I get from you? Not only in a matter of your services and products, but also on the emotional level. What is your story? Because from your story, we can put together your content marketing story, sharing your values, sharing your different bits of your story, helping your customer to relate to you and to story, understanding your customer. So who is it who has to be in your zone of influence? Because quite often we try to appeal to everybody. Quite often my customers are saying that, oh, my audience is like everybody in this country or everybody in the world. It's a nice to have thing, but in reality, in business, perhaps there are just like 1,000 to 10,000 people who should really know about you, who make the whole difference in your business, who would skyrocket to your business to an enormous height. And once you understand that, so you understand who they are, what are their values, what is of interest to them, you can also match your own personal brand strategy and your message. And also, only after that, you should really look into the channels, like where should I be present, where should be visible, what what I should
Mm-hmm.
use, Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or Facebook. It doesn't. All of those channels work perfectly well if your customers are there. And also, it's very important that from the very beginning, you have a very clear understanding what would be your measures of success. Like, how would you know
Right,
that your
right.
personal brand is working? What those would be, just like vanity KPIs, like how many followers you have online, or how many likes you get, how many shares, or you would really directly relate it to your business and look at how many leads do you get, how many new customers you get, how much money you end up having in your bank account. And once you go through all of those questions and really look at yourself from this holistic perspective, you would get a very clear understanding where you are now and
Right.
where you're going. And another suggestion that I would give, that in personal branding, there are a lot of things that are nice to have. Like you can uh, go to different podcasts forever. You can write different articles forever, but you have always to look at those through the perspective of what are the activities that I'm doing that attribute to my visibility? So my target audience especially uh, sees me and recognizes me as a brand. Then there is another layer of credibility. So what I'm saying in my own channels, and who else is mentioning me? So all of the, appearances on podcasts and traditional media, on TV, and publishing articles, it all adds up to our credibility, to our positioning as an expert. But then it is also important to think about our monetizing part, to our profitability part. So once I've been visible and I'm credible, and a person wants to buy something from me, would it be possible? Would I have something to offer? Would there be a product? And on to how many people I would be able to sell my product? So if we look at this personal branding journey from the perspective of what do I want to achieve, and putting together personal branding on one branding strategy on one side, and also looking at all of our activities for this prism of does this activity help me to get visibility? Does this activity help me to gain credibility? And does this activity help me to finally generate some profit? Then we would be able to get to our ideal outcome quicker and then more efficiently.
Well, I really appreciate how you broke down that part of your book, like the seven things, because I was taking notes and I'm sure our listeners were doing the same thing. And I'm anxious to see how this all plays out in your book. Now, I'm assuming that your book is like a handbook, like something that you can use and then go through the steps. Was that what you would call it?
Yes, I would call it a workbook.
A workbook,
Uh, so,
okay.
the, so there are 100 steps with questions helping
Yes,
you
yes.
to really dig in into those topics.
Excellent.
Quite often, I hear feedback from the readers that it might be hard to find those answers. So this is not really a book that you read. This
Right,
is a
right.
book that you take time and you write out the questions and you really think, because once you put all of those answers into this book, you will have a very, very clear understanding of where you're now, what do you need to improve, if any, and you would also have a very clear understanding where you're going.
Well, that sounds like it's a life changer. I mean, if people follow the steps and this is their goal, to understand how to brand properly, I mean, this could really change a lot of people's lives. And not just those in business, but in other areas of life too. So I really thank you for that. And I know, as I mentioned earlier, that there are so many people who really need this guide. And I appreciate that you have laid it out that way as well. So the best place to buy your book, would that be on Amazon?
Yes, that's right. The book is available both in fillable PDF and physical copy as well.
Okay. All right.
But I would really suggest for our listeners, because the change, whatever change, will not happen from people just listening to our conversation. If you just listen to the conversation that we just had, it might be okay, that's interesting, but I would really like our listeners to just rewire our conversation and think about just one small step that you can take
Right.
right this moment, so that you would start moving in this
Good point.
direction.
Good point.
And then tomorrow, perhaps another step and another
Yes.
step, because we quite often underestimate the power of baby steps. But if we look at our children and the way that they learn to walk, for
Yes, that's
example,
right.
it's just the power of baby steps.
The power of baby steps. I like that. Well, Olesija, you have given us a lot to absorb, a lot to think about. And I also trust that the listen audience, who I know have enjoyed this, but also that they will buy your book and will start the process. Because, as you said, this is not an overnight thing. This is something that we need to work at and develop. And I thank you how you have made that very clear. So we just have a few seconds left. Is there anything in closing that you would like to share with the audience as a word of encouragement?
Yes, I think I would like to end with a beautiful thought that the world doesn't need us to ask what it needs, but the world really needs more people who have come to love and who are alive. And personal branding is actually nothing more than just helping us to understand who we truly are, and then showing it to the world and really sharing this with people who need.
Very well stated. Thank you. And thank you for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.